The floating palace of Aristal hovered in the sky like a glowing island, its silver towers reaching toward the stars. The Zalari Empire was celebrating a rare event, the royal binding ceremony. Every 100 cycles, the ruling empress allowed her daughter, the princess, to choose a life partner. It was not just a royal wedding yet, it was a sacred tradition that decided the future of the empire. Alien nobles from across the galaxy had arrived, each one dreaming of becoming the chosen mate of Princess Thalira. She was known not just for her beauty but for her wisdom and strong heart. The palace halls were filled with colors, music, and scents from 100 worlds. Each alien suitor prepared to show his worth. In the middle of this great ceremony, a small human team stood quietly near the edge of the hall. They wore formal uniforms and did not speak much. They were not suitors. They were invited only as observers, a sign of new peace between Earth and the Zalari Empire. Among them was Lieutenant Jack Rayner, a young human soldier with sharp eyes and a quiet mind. He stood tall, but didn't try to draw attention. Jack had seen war, and now he just wanted peace. He didn't care for alien politics or royal games. He thought this was just a show he had to watch politely. He didn't know everything was about to change. Princess Thalira stood on the high platform, her royal robes shining with starlight threads. She looked calm, but inside she felt trapped. The law said she must choose a mate today, using the crystal of Uniana, floating stone that would glow and move toward her destined partner. But Thalira didn't believe in fate. She wanted to choose her future, not be controlled by an old tradition. Still, she did her duty. She raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. The Empress, her mother, stepped forward and spoke. "Let the crystal reveal the one who shall stand by my daughter's side, as protector and partner. May the stars guide us true." The crystal of union, held by temple priests, was released into the air. It began to float and spin, glowing with soft light. All eyes turned toward it. The alien suitors stood straight, proud, and ready. Some had trained for this day their whole lives. The crystal hovered, it glowed brighter. Then it shot forward like lightning. Gasps filled the room. It didn't stop in front of a proud Zalari warrior. It didn't go to a noble prince of the Zorax. It didn't move toward any of the famous alien suitors. Instead, floated across the entire hall right, toward the edge where the humans stood, and it stopped in front of you. Crystal glowed bright blue, floating right in front of him, spinning slowly as if it were waiting. Is it broken?" Jack asked quietly. The hall was silent. Princess Thalira stared at the crystal. Then she stared at the human. Her face showed no emotion, but her heart was beating fast. The Empress stepped forward, her voice full of shock. "This cannot be." Crystal must have been disturbed. This human was not even a suitor. One of the alien priests checked the crystal. "No, Your Majesty. The crystal has chosen. Its energy is true." Whispers turned into loud voices. Alien nobles shouted. Some were angry, others confused. A human? Unacceptable. This must be some kind of trick. Jack raised both hands. "Hold on, I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know the rules." The Empress turned toward him, eyes like fire. "You have brought shame to this sacred day." Jack was about to step back, but Princess Thalira finally spoke. "Mother," she said calmly, "the crystal does not lie. We all agreed to its wisdom. If we reject it now, we dishonor our own traditions. But a human," the Empress said. "Perhaps the stars see something we do not," Thalira replied. Jack looked at her. She didn't seem angry. Seemed curious. The Empress growled under her breath but said nothing more. That night the palace was full of tension. Some alien suitors had already left in protest. Others stayed, whispering plans and gossip. The idea of a human becoming the princess's mate was impossible in their minds. Jack sat alone in his room, still in his formal uniform, staring out the window. "This is crazy," he thought. "I didn't sign up for this." A soft knock came at the door. He opened it and saw Princess Thalira. She wore a simpler dress now, her crown gone. She looked less like a ruler and more like a real person. "May I come in?" she asked. Jack stepped aside. "Of course." They sat across from each other. "I wanted to speak to you privately," she said, "to understand who you are." "Well," Jack said slowly, "I'm not a prince. I'm just a soldier. I follow orders. I didn't mean to be part of any ceremony." "I believe you," she said. "The crystal made a choice. You didn't force anything?" Jack nodded. "But why me? I'm human. I don't belong in your world." Thalira tilted her head. "Sometimes those who don't belong are exactly what we need." There was silence for a moment. "You can still refuse," she added. "But if you do, you will bring great shame too. Me and the Empire." "I don't want that," Jack said. "But I also don't want to be a puppet in some space wedding." Thalira smiled slightly. "Then prove to them you are more. If you wish, you can take the trial of worthiness. If you pass, you earn your place beside me not because of fate, but because of choice." Jack thought about it. He didn't want to marry someone he just met, but he also didn't like how everyone treated him like trash just because he was human. Maybe he could prove something not just to them, but to himself. "I'll do it," he said. "Let's take the trial." Thalira stood. "Then I will help. You let us both fight for a future we choose, not one forced on us." They looked at each other not as strangers anymore, but as two people thrown into something bigger than both of them, and somewhere deep inside the palace the crystal of union glowed once more. The next morning, the floating palace of Veristal was less joyful than before. The golden halls were still bright, and the music still played softly, but the smiles were gone. Alien nobles walked in groups, whispering. Guards stood taller, more serious. The word had spread across the palace. The human had accepted the trial of worthiness. Some laughed behind closed doors, others were angry, closely curious to see what would happen next. Jack Rayner walked through the marble corridors beside Princess Thalira, his boots echoing softly. They were on their way to the ancient trial chambers, a hidden place under the palace where future rulers were tested. Only a few in the galaxy had ever passed the trial completely. Jack had slept very little. He was a soldier, trained for war, not royal ceremonies or ancient tests. Still, something inside him had changed. He didn't want to prove himself just to them. He wanted to show that humans mattered. Thalira glanced at him. "You're quiet, I'm thinking," Jack replied. "What if I fail?" "Then you'll fail with honor," she said calmly. "You're the first outsider to ever take the trial. That alone speaks of courage." Jack muttered. "I just hope the trial agrees with you." They stopped in front of a large black door with glowing blue lines. Two old Zelari priests stood beside it. "Are you prepared, human?" one priest asked. Jack took a breath. "Let's find out." Door opened with a hiss, and Jack stepped into a massive chamber. Thalira remained outside, watching through a viewing screen. The room was empty. At first, then the floor lit up, and a voice echoed all around him. It was deep and strange, ancient and powerful. Trial 1. Compassion. Suddenly the walls shifted, and Jack found himself in a strange jungle. Trees with glowing leaves towered over him. He heard shouting ahead. He ran toward the sound and saw two aliens fighting. One was a large reptilian warrior from the planet Krovan, and the other was a smaller, injured Zelare boy. A fire raged nearby. The warrior had cornered the boy against a rock wall. The child was crying, wounded. Jack looked around. He saw a spear on the ground. He could use it to attack the Krovan. But then he noticed a large beam above, shaking, ready to fall. If he timed it right, he could push the child to safety, but it would mean putting himself in danger. Jack dropped the spear. He ran, grabbed the child, and rolled just as the beam crashed down behind him. His back hit the dirt hard, but the boy was safe. The scene faded. The jungle vanished. Trial 1 passed. Jack stood up slowly, still catching his breath. The voice returned. Trial 2. Wisdom. The walls turned again. Now he stood inside an old chamber filled with glowing symbols. In the center was a puzzle. floating pieces of light that moved in patterns. A riddle appeared in the air. What walks without legs, flies without wings, and speaks without a mouth? Jack frowned. I've heard this before. He walked around the symbols, watching how the pieces responded to his movement. Then he smiled. It's sound. The symbols clicked into place. Soft hum filled the air. Trial 2. Passed. Outside the chamber, Thalira let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Behind her, the alien nobles watching through the viewing screens were silent. Even those who doubted Jack were starting to notice. The human was not a fool. Inside the chamber, Jack rubbed his eyes. Sweat rolled down his face. The air felt heavier now. Final trial. Sacrifice. The floor shifted. The walls turned red suddenly. Jack found himself in a dark corridor. A bright light appeared behind him, and he saw Princess Thalira tied to a platform, her eyes wide in shock. A spinning orb of unstable energy hovered above her, crackling. With power, the voice spoke again. Save yourself, or shield the chosen one. Jack didn't think twice. He ran forward, climbed onto the platform, threw his body over Thalira, just as the orb exploded with a loud boom. Pain. Everything burned. Jack felt like fire had wrapped around his body. But slowly, the pain faded. He opened his eyes and realized he was still alive. The chamber returned to normal. The orb was gone. Thalira vanished, just an image. A test. Final trial passed. The human is worthy. Jack collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. Later, in the healing chamber, Jack lay on a soft bed. Alien healers moved around him, treating his burns and injuries. Thalira entered quietly and sat beside him. You did it, she said softly. Jack looked at her, still. Tired. Barely. You didn't have to protect me in the last trial, she said. You knew it was fake. You knew it was a test. I didn't know it was fake, Jack replied. But even if I did, I'd still have done it. Thalira's eyes softened. Why? Jack closed his eyes. Because no one should face danger alone. Not even a princess. That evening, the news spread fast. The human had passed all 3 trials. Alien nobles gathered in the Great Hall again. This time they watched Jack differently. Some with respect, others with confusion. A few with quiet fear. Jack stood beside Thalira, dressed in a ceremonial robe. A Zellery general approached and bowed slightly. Lieutenant Raynor, I misjudged your people. You have strength beyond the body. Jack simply nodded. Thanks. But not everyone was pleased. Hidden in the shadows of the upper balcony, a tall alien figure watched with narrow eyes. His skin was silver, and his armor bore the mark of House Neretha, noble family once close to the Empress. His name was Prince Varek, and he had trained since childhood to marry Thalira. He was proud, powerful, and angry. This human has no place here, he whispered to himself. If the trials cannot stop him, perhaps I must. As the crowd celebrated the results of the trial, and as Thalira led Jack to the royal balcony, for his first formal greeting as a suitor, the seeds of rebellion were already growing. 2 suns rose over the floating palace of Veristal, casting golden light across the shimmering towers. From high above, the city looked peaceful. But deep inside the palace walls, the air was tense. Whispers spread like wind. Feared change. Some felt angry and others began to plot. But at the center of this storm, Jack Raynor stood beside Princess Thalira, walking through the royal garden. The trial was over. It had passed. The crystal had chosen him. And now, many nobles were forced to accept the unthinkable. A human might become the next royal mate of the Zellery. Empire.Tha Lyra watched Jack as they walked. You walk differently now, she said. Jack looked at her confused. I do. Before you moved like a guest. Now you walk like someone who belongs here. Jack smiled slightly. I'm still not sure I do. You passed all 3 trials, she said. Want to reach even? Many of our own nobles have failed them. Jack looked down at the glowing plants around them. I didn't win by strength or knowledge alone. I just did what felt right. That's what made you different, Thalira said. And maybe that's what makes you dangerous to some. High above, Prince Varric stared at a screen in his private chamber. His silver armor glowed under red lights. Look at him, he growled, smiling beside her like he's already a king. Behind him, a tall insectoid noble bowed. He has support now, the crystal, the trials, even some of the priests. If you want to stop him, it must be soon. Varric's fists tightened. The Empress will never let him take the throne. But she will not break the crystal's will either. The insectoid leaned closer, then forced her hand. If the people turn against the human, the Empress will have no choice. Varric nodded slowly. Prepare the plan. Back in the palace library, Thalira showed Jack ancient star maps. She smiled. As she spoke, more relaxed than before, this map shows all the systems under our rule, she said. I've memorized them all. My tutors made sure of that. Jack leaned closer. Ever been to Earth? No, she said. But I've studied your species. You've come far. Very fast. Many think humans are too wild, but I think you're simply free. Jack chuckled. That's one way to put it. We argue a lot. But when it matters, we stand together. Thalira looked thoughtful. Would you return if you could? Jack paused. I don't know. I used to think I would, but now I want to see where this leads. Their eyes met. For a moment, there was no princess, no soldier, no empire, only the souls. Slowly beginning to trust. Later that evening, the palace held a grand feast in honor of the trials. Music played, dancers from many worlds performed, and foods from every corner of the galaxy filled the tables. Jack sat at Thalira's side, dressed in a simple but elegant Zalari robe. To his surprise, some nobles now greeted him with respect. A few even raised their glasses in his direction, but not everyone was smiling. At the edge of the hall, a waiter carrying a glowing silver tray moved toward Jack and Thalira. On the tray were 2 small crystal glasses filled with green liquid. Royal drink of blessing. Jack reached for one. Wait, Thalira said softly. She narrowed her eyes at the drink. Her finger touched the side of the glass. The liquid flickered, then changed color. It's poisoned, she said, standing quickly. Guards rushed forward. The waiter dropped the tray and ran, but not fast enough. Jack tackled him from behind, bringing him down hard, the man hissed. In an alien tongue, and spat at Jack. You don't belong here, human. Guards pulled him away. The room fell into shock. Nobles whispered in fear. The Empress stood slowly, her voice cold. This is an attack on the crown, she said. There will be consequences. But Jack was thinking only one thing, that poison was meant for him. And Thalira. That night, Thalira sat alone in the observation room, staring at the stars. Jack walked in quietly and sat beside her. They'll try again, he said. Yes, she replied. Varric will not stop until one of us is gone. Jack clenched his fists. We need to find proof. Catch him. She looked at him. If you stay, your life will always be in danger. Jack looked out the window. I'm a soldier. Danger isn't new. But this matters more than any mission I've had before. She said nothing for a moment. Then, you don't act. Like a suitor, you don't chase power. You don't flatter me. Jack smiled. You don't act like a princess. You ask real questions. You speak like a person, not a ruler. She looked at him and then reached out, placing her hand on his dot. Silence between them was not empty. Days later, the palace prepared for the royal binding ritual. The final step? It was not a wedding, but a public sign of commitment. If Thalira completed it, Jack would become her official consort. But as the preparations began, strange things happened. A weapons cache in the guard tower exploded. Food stores were poisoned. 2 nobles were found unconscious in their rooms. Varric's plan had begun, but he was careful. No direct link to him. The palace was on high alert. But still, the ceremony continued. The night before the ritual, Jack and Thalira met in a secret part of the palace, the Chamber of Echoes, a room of crystal mirrors where no device could listen. "There's something I haven't told you," Thalira said quietly. "The ritual doesn't just mark you as consort. It also connects our minds, even our emotions." Jack blinked. "What do you mean?" "You'll feel what I feel. See parts of my memories? Share some of my thoughts. It's not full mind reading, but close." Jack was silent for a long moment. "That's a big step." She nodded. "Which is why I offer you this. If you want to leave, I'll end the ceremony tomorrow." Jack looked at her, at the princess, who had once seemed like a distant star. Now she sat before him, uncertain, honest. "I'll stay," he said, "not because the crystal chose me, but because I choose you." The day of the ceremony arrived. Thousands gathered in the central sky hall. Floating platforms held nobles, guests, and priests. The emperor stood tall, ready to oversee the ritual. Thalira entered, dressed in silver and violet robes. Jack walked beside her in white. The crystal floated between them, glowing but far above. In the shadows of a tower, Prince Varric stood with a strange weapon, an ancient blaster forbidden by palace law. It could kill with one shot. He aimed at Jack's heart. "Goodbye, human," he whispered. But just as he pulled the trigger, something flashed. Boom. A second shot struck his weapon. It exploded in his hand. Varric screamed, falling from the balcony. Guards rushed in. One of them held a human rifle. It was Sergeant Maria Lejax, team member. She saluted him from below. "Thought I'd keep an eye on things." Jack nodded with a grin. The ceremony continued. The crystal spun between Jack and Thalira. Light filled the sky hall. Slowly, it moved forward and touched both of their foreheads. Their eyes widened as the bond formed. Jack saw flashes of Thalira's childhood, her fears, her lonely moments. Thalira saw his memories, his pain, his courage, his honesty. And when the light faded, they looked at each other with new understanding. They were not strangers. Anymore, they were partners. The crowd rose in applause. Even the Empress gave a slow, proving nod. The galaxy had witnessed something no one expected, and it was only the beginning. The palace of Varastal seemed peaceful at dawn. The sky was a soft pink, and the city floated silently in the early light. But inside the palace, tension burned like a fire waiting to explode. Jack Raynor and Princess Thalira had just completed the royal binding ritual. The bond between them was real now. The crystal had united their minds and hearts, revealing secrets and fears. They had become partners not just in name but in soul. But not everyone accepted this union. Far above in the shadowy towers of the palace, Prince Varric lay wounded. His silver armor torn and bloodied. His plan had failed, and now he hid with his loyal supporters. His eyes burned with hatred. "We will not lose," he hissed. The Empire must not fall to a human. A small group of conspirators gathered in a secret chamber below. They wore dark cloaks and whispered plans of sabotage, of taking the palace by force. "We strike tonight," one said. "The Empress will be caught unaware. The guards will be confused. We take the throne before dawn." Varric nodded. "And the human and princess, they will be removed." Meanwhile, Jack and Thalira met with their closest allies. Alien nobles who had supported Jack's trials stood by them, loyal and ready. "We cannot underestimate them," Thalira said firmly. "They want chaos." Jack nodded. "We'll defend this palace with everything we have." That night, the palace slept under a heavy silence, but deep in the halls, shadows moved. Suddenly, alarms blared. The palace was under attack. Guards rushed to their posts. The traitors struck hard and fast, using secret passages and hidden weapons. They aimed to capture the Empress and kill Jack and Thalira. Jack fought through the dark corridors, blaster in hand. He moved with the skill of a soldier, but with the heart of a protector. Thalira stayed close, using her knowledge of the palace. To guide their group, in the throne room, the Empress was cornered by two masked attackers. She raised her hand, summoning a blast of energy to defend herself. Suddenly, Jack and Thalira burst through the doors. Together they fought side by side. Jack shot carefully, taking down one attacker. Thalira used her energy shield to block blows. Their teamwork surprised the traitors. One by one, the rebels fell or fled. But the battle was not over. Deep beneath the palace, the traitors had taken a group of nobles hostage. They demanded the surrender of Jack and Thalira, threatening to kill the captives. Jack's team quickly planned a rescue. Moving quietly through ancient tunnels, Jack and Thalira led a small squad to free the hostages. The narrow passageways tested their courage and strength. Jack used his soldiers' training to detect traps and disable alarms. Thalira used her royal knowledge to unlock sealed doors. At the last moment, they burst into the chamber where the nobles were held. A fierce fight erupted.
Ow.
Jack shielded Thalira from a blast, taking the full force himself. Pain burned through his side, but he refused to fall. Thalira fought with grace and power, protecting their allies. Finally, the last traitor fell. The nobles were freed. Back in the Great Hall, the Empress looked at Jack and Thalira with new respect. "You have saved the Empire," she said. Jack smiled weakly. "I only did what any soldier would do." Thalira took Jack's hand. "We face new dangers," she said, "but together we are stronger." In the days that followed, the palace repaired its wounds. Prince Varrock was captured and exiled, but the threat of rebellion still lingered. Jack and Thalira knew their bond was more than ceremony. It was a promise. A promise to protect not just each other, but a future where humans and aliens could stand as equals. End of Part 4. Part 5 will bring the final choice and the beginning of a new era. Would you like me to write Part 5 now? You said Part 5 1500 words ka, lako, or interesting hunachaya, or third-person style. Malekni ha, or simple basic English kachat, Geepy said. Here's Part 5 of your HFY Sci-Fi story. An alien princess ceremony takes a turn when a human is named the Groom, written in third person, simple basic English, and crafted to be engaging and satisfying. Part 5. A choice made freely. The skies over Veristal were clear and bright as the day of the final decision arrived. The floating palace was alive with activity. Diplomats, nobles, and citizens from many species filled the Great Hall. The galaxy watched, waiting to see what would happen next. Jack Rayner stood quietly beside Princess Thalira. They had been through trials, battles, and doubts. Now it was time for the most important moment of all, the moment when Thalira would publicly declare her choice. The Empress took the throne, her eyes sweeping over the crowd. Today, she began, her voice strong. We honor our traditions. But traditions can grow and change. The Crystal of Union has chosen. The trials have proven worth. But now, the choice is hers, Thalaris. The future is hers to decide. All eyes turned to the princess. Thalira stepped forward, her silver and violet robes flowing behind her. Her gaze found Jack's in the crowd. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Thalira spoke, her voice clear. I choose him not because the crystal did, but because I do. Gasps and whispers spread through the crowd. Some were shocked, some smiled, but all listened. Jack stepped forward, his heart steady. You will have me, not as a prince, not as a ruler, but as your partner. I am ready. Thalira smiled softly. Together we will lead, not just as king and queen, but as equals, as friends, as family. The crystal floated between them, glowing brighter than ever. It pulsed with light, sealing their bond. Suddenly, the room erupted in applause. The Empress nodded, proud. Let this be a new beginning, for the Zelari Empire, for humans. 4. All who seek unity. Days later, Jack and Thalira stood on the balcony overlooking the city. Ships from many worlds flew past in celebration. Do you regret it? Jack asked. Thalira shook her head. No, I never believed in the crystal. Alone, I believed in us. Jack smiled. Humans are known for stubbornness, he said. Maybe that helped. Thalira laughed softly. And your stubbornness is why I trust you. Together, They prepared to travel the galaxy not as rulers bound by old customs, but as ambassadors of a new future. A future where humans and aliens stood side by side. The galaxy watched. For the first time, humans were not just outsiders. They were partners, or family. The stars were theirs to explore. The great moon of Varelia hung in the sky like a broken jewel. Once a peaceful place of trade and diplomacy, now it was a battlefield. Ash and smoke covered the land, and the sound of distant war drums echoed across the rocky plains. But not. Today was meant to be a day of peace. Inside the marble halls of the Jirani Citadel, a tall alien woman walked slowly past the grand pillars, her silver robe brushing the smooth floor. Her name was Princess Kazari, heir to the Jirani Empire. Her skin shimmered with faint violet tones, and her golden eyes glowed with pride and a hint of arrogance. Behind her walked her attendants, slender, psychic beings, elegant and graceful. They said nothing. None dared to speak when the princess was displeased. Humans, Kazari said with a cold smile, are late again. They move slow, Highness, one of her guards said. They hide in armor, she added, like children afraid of the dark. Just then, heavy metallic footsteps echoed from the far side of the hall. Doors opened with a loud groan. A human delegation entered for soldiers in dark gray armor. One of them walking in front. He was tall, broader than the others, and his helmet reflected the hall's bright blue light. Sergeant Damon Voss of the Terran Defense Force. Kazari's smile widened. Look, she whispered to her aide. The walking tin man arrives. The human stopped a few meters away. Damon stepped forward, removed his helmet, and tucked it under one arm. His face was sharp and worn, with short black hair and a deep scar under one eye. His expression was calm, polite, but clearly tired of war. We are here for the council meeting, he said. On behalf of Earth and its allies, I thank you for hosting us. Kazari raised an eyebrow. She stepped closer, looking him up and down like a curious child. That armor, she said softly. Do you wear it to hide your weakness? Damon didn't flinch. He stood straight, meeting her golden gaze. No, he replied. I wear it so others don't have to die in my place. A few Jirani nobles chuckled. Kazari gave a light laugh, shaking her head. You humans always speak in riddles. Bravery, sacrifice, honor it. All sounds so ... poetic. But without our gifts, your people would be crushed. Damon looked around the hall. Statues of ancient Jirani kings and queens lined the walls. Each held a glowing crystal or a weapon powered by mind energy. We don't have psychic powers, he said. We don't fly, and we don't live for centuries. But we don't stop fighting, even when we're losing. Kazari tilted her head, intrigued. Is that supposed to impress me? No, he said. One day it might save you. Before she could respond, a Jirani official waved them toward the inner chamber. The formal council was about to begin. Inside the meeting room, leaders from both species sat around a circular table. Blue lights floated above them, and strange music hummed in the background. The topic was Grimm, the Krexari, a hive-like alien species that attacked both Jirani and human worlds. Their numbers were growing, their methods cruel. The Jirani believed in defense through mental barriers, energy domes, and diplomacy. The humans favored direct action strikes, traps, and brute force. We should strike the main hive before it grows, said Commander Patel, another human officer. Kazari raised a hand and loosed thousands of lives in a blind assault. No. We must lure them, contain them, and let our psychic masters do the work. Damon leaned forward. With respect, Princess, your people tried that on Eltor 4. The Krexori broke through your shields in 2 hours. We've studied them. You can't reason with a swarm. You kill a Tor. It eats everything. You humans love violence, Kazari snapped. It's your first answer to every problem. Your people love waiting, Damon said calmly. Sometimes too long. The room fell silent. Kazari narrowed her eyes, but Damon didn't back down. He spoke with calm strength. Not To insult, but to warn. A Jirani elder coughed. Perhaps we take a short break, he said. The meeting paused. Attendees began leaving the room. Kazari turned to Damon. Come, she said. Walk with me. I want to understand this human thinking. Damon hesitated but nodded. They walked. Through a quiet corridor filled with art and ancient weapons. You speak like a warrior, she said. But your armor does all the work. Damon stopped. You think I hide behind it? She stepped closer, teasing. Do you not? He looked at her for a moment. You'll understand one day, he said. Then he turned and walked away. That night, skies above Varelia turned red. Explosions shook the mountains. Lights flashed across the horizon. The Krexari had arrived. Screams filled the air. Jirani shields activated, but in several outer districts they failed. The enemy had evolved. Their claws tore through walls and force fields. Their shrieks echoed. Like the cries of the damned, Kazari was rushed toward the inner citadel by her guards. We must stay inside the throne bunker. One shouted, no, she said. The people suddenly a Krexori beast smashed through a nearby wall. It was huge, spider-like. With acid dripping from its mandibles, Kazari froze. Then a figure slammed into the monster from the side Damon. In full armor, his energy blade glowing, he hacked the creature's legs off, dodged acid sprays, and stabbed. Through its chest, the beast fell. Twitching, he turned toward. Kazari, you all right? She stared in shock. Her guards were still recovering. Damon had moved faster, hit harder, and protected her without hesitation. I'm fine, she said softly. Good, he said. Stay behind me. He moved quickly through the burning halls. Damon shielded her from collapsing beams and fought off more Krexari. Even wounded, he didn't stop. One creature bit into his armor, but it didn't pierce. Kept going. At last, they reached a secure zone. The Jirani military pushed forward to retake the palace grounds. Kza returned to Damon, breathing heavily. You risked everything. For me? I told you, he said, voice tired. I wear this armor so others don't have to die. Looked at the scratches on his chest plate, at the blood on his gloves, at the fire in his eyes. She had mocked him. Now, she wasn't sure who the weak one really was.